It was a tough one to watch. They got some of it done. This is going to be a tough one. Matt Dare's going to take us through the post-game aftermath as Chiefs lose to the Bengals. Welcome to Locked On Chiefs.
From the land of the free and the home of the Chiefs, this is the Locked On Chiefs podcast.
I'm just going to say this up front. That was the worst officiating game I think I've ever seen.
There were plenty of mistakes all around.
They gifted the Bengals. They gifted the Bengals. I don't know how many points, and they took a TD off the board for the Chiefs. That I really would like to see another angle on before I judge that one. But it sure looked like it should have been a TD, at least from my point of view. Matt, how are you doing?
I'm a little worn out after that one. That was one of the more bizarre and unusual games I've ever seen, and the ending just made it even more so. So I'm kind of at a loss right now to explain this one.
Explanations are thin on the ground at this point. It is back and forth. This was, in my opinion, an all-phase, well, maybe not all-phase. Credit to the special teams. I thought they were solid. I thought they did their job. This was on defense and offense. Both of them had some stumbles. Clearly, I think the preparation was not what it should have been in order to secure this win. Now, it's not the end of the world. You'll get a chance to see this same team come the playoffs. I think my feeling through this whole day, Matt, you tell me if I'm wrong, it just felt like they underestimated the Bengals all the way around.
You know, I'm at a loss on that one because I really felt like that throughout the week. I mean, that there was a great deal of respect that they were giving the Bengals. I mean, maybe it was just verbal, but you know, there was a lot of talk from the coaches and the players alike that this was going to be a tough one. And I can't necessarily put a whole lot of this on the offense because considering what the offense had to deal with losing both Orlando Brown and Lucas Niang, and still coming out and do what they did in the first half. Now, you want to have some faults about the second half execution and performance. We can definitely have that. But I'm just at a loss because, you know, Ryan, we talked about it earlier in the week. I mean, what's the number one thing you got to do with this Bengals team? You got to stop Jamar Chase. Yep. And how that was not the number one thing that you do, and you even consider double teaming Chase and doubling down on it and just never even changing the game plan throughout the game. I mean, that's perplexing to me because Jamar Chase won this game. Yeah, I give Joe Burrow all the credit, you know, a lot of credit because he was playing on one leg certainly in the second half. But Jamar Chase won this game.
Yeah, no, he definitely did win the game for him. I will say this, though. Tyreek Hill needs to figure out his drop situation because that drop at the end of the first half really cost them points.
That was not a drop. That was not a drop. I will go to my
grave. It won't go down as a drop. It will go down as a defense pass, but it was a catchable ball.
It was a catchable ball, but
the ball hit
no one's
his
giving
body
the defender
before.
any credit there.
The ball hit his body.
You're absolutely right.
The ball hit his body before.
To give the defender credit.
That's fine. I'm just saying the ball hit his body before he had his hands on it. That to me is if he gets his hands on the ball first, there's no way the defender makes that play. So
you are absolutely correct.
He needs to catch that ball. He needed to catch the ball earlier in the game, and ended up not costing Kansas City because Kelsey came back and got a TD on the very next play. Say what you want about the defense and say what you want about Charvarius Ward. I know I've got a lot of people in my mentions hating on Ward right now. He was in a very hard situation against Jamar Chase, who was a fantastic wide receiver. Chase made plays. Ward was not given help, which I think is more on Spags than it really is on Ward. And I think Ward's played fantastic for Kansas City. So you know, remember how he's played all season.
Yeah, and there was a couple of times that, I mean, Ward did everything he could to stop Chase. And had he done even 1% more, he would have gotten flagged for pass interference. I mean, he was draped all over him a couple of times, and Chase just was in an absolute zone today of catching virtually everything that was thrown his way. And even when he wasn't, it's getting some flags. So, you know, and he probably sold one of those pretty well. So I guess give him credit for that one too. But
he should have had offensive pass interference on that first touchdown.
Yeah, I'm still just perplexed at the Chiefs' decision to never really double team him. I mean, it was that one is still going to stick with me for a while.
That's my thought as well. Ward got his hand on that last chunk play that Chase came up with and actually touched the ball in its path, and it's just something that I think you asked Ward to do all that he could, and he did. It didn't work out. You're absolutely right, Matt. I kept waiting for them to just roll Thornhill and stand him over wherever Chase was and take him away, like teams do to Tyreek Hill, like teams have done to Travis Kelce in order to take away their crutch. If Higgins beats you for more, what do you end up with, 68 yards? And yes, they are pair. He plays well too. But if he beats you, then you can say, okay, we at least made the adjustment. Leaving Chase alone after the first quarter. I mean, I think I tweeted out at the end of the third quarter, they had 138 yards that didn't come from Chase. This was a breakdown on the staff side. Execution you can complain about all day long. Fenton as well, little overly physical. I thought the young guys, even Snead, showed their age and got a little frustrated, got a little over the top at times. But this was on the staff to make an adjustment that they just never got to.
Well, and then you have Sorensen doing what he did early in the season and missing an assignment on that. What was it, the second TD by Chase, where he just completely blew the coverage and should have been helping over the top and ended up, looking at the middle read. And that's going to kill you. You cannot have those against good teams, and the Bengals are a good team. Ryan and I talked about this on Friday. They're a good team. They were capable of beating Kansas City. And to go into this game and for Kansas City to be up 28-14 going into halftime, you have to feel really good, especially considering Kansas City didn't give up a sack. And they were down their two left tackles, and they didn't give up a single sack in this game.
Well, that's the reason that I was hinting about the offense as well. So I do think that it is on both sides of the ball. It just comes down to what can you get done. I think we should get into that next.
You guys need to check out Built Bar if you've not checked it out so far. I do not know what you're waiting for. It is the new year, so that means New Year's resolutions. If yours is about getting fitter, eating healthier, make sure you include Built Bar in your plans. Built Bar is the protein bar that tastes like a candy bar, maybe even better than a candy bar, and yes, they are that good. You want to eat healthy, but it's just so boring. By like week 3, you might be thinking it's just not worth it. Where's the chocolate? Built Bars are 100% covered in chocolate. Most have 130 calories, 4 grams of sugar, 4 grams of net carbs, and 17 grams of protein. Compare that to a candy bar, which usually has around 240 calories, 30 grams of sugar, and dozens of net carbs. Even if you're not a huge fan of working out, you can at least eat something that tastes good and is good for you. That way, when you enjoy a delicious Built Bar, you can almost count it as a workout. Go to Built.com and use promo code LOCKED15 for 15% off your order. Use promo code LOCKED15 for 15% off at Built.com.
Offense struggled in the second half. That's my problem with them. I felt that they let up a little bit and they weren't able to get back going. I think they wasted a great day by Darryl. But, Matt, this thing, Orlando Brown gets hurt in warmups. Their adjustment to that decision, did you like them just sticking with the one substitution, putting in Niang at first just for Brown?
Yeah, I mean, I certainly thought even moving Joe Thuney over to left tackle at the very beginning was worth a consideration. But you're right. I mean, the Chiefs don't like to move multiple positions if they don't have to. I think at this point, they certainly consider Lucas Niang to be their second best tackle. So plugging him on the left side and keeping Wiley on the right, certainly on paper was the right decision.
Yeah, and I didn't see what happened pregame. Was Niang back at right tackle starting? Does anybody know? Or is he still the backup?
I haven't seen what the lineup was, but I'm assuming that Niang was probably going to be starting at right tackle.
Okay, yeah. Well, obviously it didn't work out that way. Joe Thuney, I thought, played a fantastic game in left tackle for Kansas City. They did help him some, but for what he had to do in that game going up against Hendrickson, who has been on fire for Cincinnati the entire season, to hold him with 0 sacks was a fantastic game for him.
Yeah, I thought the entire offensive line, for the most part, played pretty well. I mean, especially considering the fire that they were under. Nick Allegretti got a couple of really nice blocks, a couple of pancakes. I thought, for the most part, Creed Humphrey and Trey Smith did what they usually do. Andrew Wiley, solid for the most part. I mean, I think there was a couple of rough snaps, probably a couple of rough snaps for Thuney over on the left side too. But given the fire that Thuney was under, absolutely. I mean, I think that was a remarkable performance to be able to step in there. I mean, remember, outside of 1 snap at left tackle and 8 snaps at right tackle, that's the only experience that Joe Thuney has had at tackle in his NFL career. I mean, otherwise you have to go back to college at North Carolina State, the last time that he consistently played tackle. So being able to do that, I think is a big deal. I mean, and it goes back to me, remember when Thuney signed with the Chiefs and before the Chiefs acquired Orlando Brown, I mean, that was a question was, hey, are you going to move Joe Thuney to left tackle? Because right when they acquired him, he was the best left tackle on this team. I'm going to be curious to see, depending on Brown's injury, what they do going forward.
And that seems to be it. It seems like Niang is a pretty significant injury with the cart. We'll see what it happens. I've seen a number of things about the patella tendon. We'll see if that comes out. We have not heard from the team yet, folks, as we're recording this. So it really comes back to Brown's injury. And if he does have to miss time, right now, given this performance, are you comfortable with Thuney staying at left tackle, Allegretti at left guard, Do you think that hopefully they'll get Kyle Long back in the mix? I think he would have been an emergency option as well. How do you feel about what they have to do with that O-line should Brown have to miss time?
Yeah, honestly, I mean, I think that this would absolutely be their bestest line going forward. I mean, if you had to play without Orlando Brown, I do think that Joe Thuney at this point is your best bet at left tackle. You know, otherwise, you know, you've got a guy like Prince Tega Wanongo who has, you know, really no NFL experience yet, and Kyle Long. I mean, remember, guy hasn't played right tackle in this league since 2015, so the amount of experience there is a real problem. So I would not be surprised at all if Joe Thuney stayed on the left side.
A lot of question marks, and I know we need to talk about this game. A lot of question marks. Kansas City is now the number 2 seed, and they absolutely have to win, or they have a chance of dropping even further next week. They do have the division locked up. We will be talking about that throughout the rest of this week, I'm sure. But you start looking at what really happened with this Chiefs team. Drops killed them. Penalties killed them at the wrong times on offense. It really slowed some of their drives down. It looked like they were going to get some points. And a lot of officiating calls that just seem to go against Kansas City in this game that's really are going to just be question marks going throughout the rest of the season. And one of the bigger things, and Matt, you pointed this out on Twitter, I saw you do it, you shouldn't have to challenge a call that early in the game that they had to challenge. There was no way he was at the first down level, and that was not the only time that it became an issue. Later in the game, they gave him a first down where I think he was still half a yard short, and Reed didn't see it.
Yeah, I mean, there was no doubt that it was a rough day for the officiating across the board. I mean, I thought they made both bad calls on both sides. I never like the call on a game play like that at the very end too, with the call with the hands to the face. It's a pretty tic-tac play. And I mean, I think at that point, I think it's you let them play concept. And these officials, for the most part, were not on the let them play concept. I mean, there was a lot of tic-tac calls that were made. There were probably a few tic-tac calls that didn't go. There were some egregious calls that probably didn't go. And I'm never gonna, blame the officials for a loss. I mean, the loser's way out. Let's face it, as Ryan pointed out, Chiefs convert one of those missed drives in the second half, they win the game. They get one stop, they win the game. So there were plenty of opportunities for the Chiefs to win this one. Didn't get it done, but yeah, it's unfortunate that what was billed as the game of the year in the NFL and was played like the game of the year in the NFL was not officiated like that. It was officiated like a Thursday night game in Cleveland during their ugly days.
Yeah. And I agree with you. You cannot blame that loss on the referees, but I will say this. I'm still pissed off about the way it was called, not because it went against the Chiefs, because all the penalties, the gross majority of them, especially those that were thin in terms of evidence, were all against the defenses. That's why I'm still fired up about people saying that was dropped. That defender counted in that play towards Hill not making that catch, right? He gets no credit from the broadcast crew or honestly from most fans. The referees seem to be penalizing the defenses on both teams more than the offenses, which, like you said, Matt, there were several kinds of instigations that should have gone against the offense that just aren't called. Is that what we need to expect now? Is that what we're getting to, where the offenses have a little bit more room to maneuver in terms of actually making legal plays happen?
I mean, that's going to just continue to be the trend in the NFL. I mean, for the most part, is that it's going to favor the offense. No doubt. I mean, everything the NFL has done in recent years has been to favor the offense because apparently that's what people watch. It's what you pay everybody to do. So defensive guys are just going to continue to get hosed on those kind of things. It just seems like everything the NFL does is wants more and more offense, and so. Yeah, I mean, I don't get what today's officiating game plan was. I mean, I certainly think that this officiating crew absolutely at the end of the day needs to look back and say, you know what, we did a crappy job. And there's probably a couple of the plays that the NFL office 345 in New York needs to come out and say, you know what, yeah, there was a couple of mistakes made. It's just unfortunate, like again, that a marquee game like this gets marred by too many flags and. And I made a remark about it at the time. I mean, the L'Jarius Sneed tackle on the outside, I didn't think was that egregious. I mean, sometimes you're going to get flagged automatically when you fling a guy, but at the same time, you let him go. I mean, that was a 15-yard penalty for tackling. I don't think there's any doubt about that.
Well, and then the L'Jarius Sneed pass interference call. He didn't do anything. And they called pass interference, and that gave Cincinnati a chance to go down and score another touchdown, and that really changed the game as well. I understand Kansas City could have made a stop, and they didn't. But officiating was too one-sided. And, another call that went against Kansas City that cost them later, Chris Jones on offsides. When the broadcast shows that Joe Burrow false started. How many of those different types of plays are you going to just give them?
It's shaping up to be an interesting scenario. And I'm going to spin this for you guys because I am going to take, hey, what happens next to the next level? First, I have to tell you about our offer is back with Get Upside. It's the way that you can save money when you buy gasoline, and we all do. So check that out. 25 cents back on every gallon that you buy once you sign up and use our code touchdown for the NFL over on Get Upside. It's the app you can get from many of the app stores. Now on your first tank, you get an extra 25 cents back. So you get 50 cents back on every gallon that you buy on your first tank when you sign up at Get Upside, the free app at any store with our code touchdown. I'm going to spin it this way because this is what I was thinking as we came down the stretch. The Bucs overlooked the Chiefs last season in their regular season meeting. Chiefs embarrassed him. They got a chance to work through the playoffs and come back and get their revenge. I think the same thing can happen in reverse in Cincinnati. I think the defense, especially the defensive coaching staff, overlooked Jamar Chase in particular, but the offense as a whole, they have an opportunity to get that right because I think they will see this team again. Am I wrong?
No, I don't think you're wrong at all. I mean, to me, I think absolutely if the Chiefs defense gets a second chance at this Bengals offense, I think they're absolutely going to attack it in a different way. And you're right. I mean, just taking on Jamar Chase is going to be that alone. I thought the other mistake that the Chiefs really made was I felt like they didn't recognize, as far as the game plan goes, that it certainly looked like that Burrow was really affected by that hit by Okafor in the first half, because he was a completely different quarterback in the second half. He was not mobile. He was not. There was only really one time that he scrambled. And he picked up that first down and immediately slid. There was something wrong. And then, of course, he even went out of the game at the end, when he got hit on one of those, quarterback sneaks. So I don't know what Joe Burrow is going to be going forward. This could be a very costly win for the Bengals, depending on just where he's at physically. So they may not be the same team in that regard, but no, I mean, I think that given a second chance, Steve Spagnuolo is going to do some things differently. I don't know that the Chiefs offense needs to do a whole lot differently other than they need to figure out how to get Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelce more involved. A little bit more freed up. I mean, Mahomes, outside of maybe 2 throws, I thought had a really good day. But, once again, it comes back to the question, what's this Chiefs offense when Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelce aren't getting it going? And today, I mean, 31 points should be enough to win most games. So I kind of put this on the defense that if you're going to give up that many points, you don't deserve to win. So now you ask me what's most likely scenario to happen. I think it's much more likely that if these two teams meet each other again, that the Chiefs still put up 31 points, but I don't see the Bengals putting up 38 on the Chiefs again.
Well, and I think that you look at this game and you look at what could be coming down the pike. One of the things I agree with you, I think you have to put this game on the defense. But you look at what happened and how this game played out. Kansas City had the opportunity to slow their offense down. They never got there. They allowed them to keep getting first downs. They allowed them to keep moving the ball. And yes, penalties helped at some point. But you look at what Cincinnati was able to do. They didn't really run the ball very well, so Kansas City was able to shut that down a little bit. But, Jamar Chase obviously having the game he had and not making any changes to give your guys help is huge. And you cannot do that at this level and expect to win.
Yeah, you're right. I completely agree with all of that. I mean, there was a couple of things, and I should tell myself, I do know it was 34-31, not 38. It felt like 38 there at the end.
We were going to go there.
Let me catch myself. But and I feel like that for most of the season, Andy Reid has done a really good job with this club overall. But I mean, there's certainly going to be 2 decisions that I think are really going to be questioned. And I know he was asked one of them during the post-game press conference, and I didn't get a chance to hear the answer yet. But one was certainly not just going ahead and letting the Bengals score a touchdown and give the ball back to Mahomes with 2 minutes left and see what happens. Even though the Chiefs almost got it done, 1st and goal from the 1 is not a scenario where you usually get stops and get no points out of it. So, and you knew that even if you get the stop, best case scenario is that you've got under a minute to try and do something with the football. So I'm still not sure about that one. And then the other one, I mean, it was really, deciding to punt on the 4th and 6th. 4th and 6 is a long one, that's a down and distance that Andy Reid's probably not going to go for it a lot. There are other coaches in the league who will go for that 100% of the time. That's another one of those decisions that I putting it in your defense that at that point had not stopped the Bengals for the most part all day long.
And that's the key.
Was probably in retrospect of definitely the wrong call. So either one of those decisions go differently. Maybe this game has a different outcome.
You're absolutely right, and that's the biggest key is you go for that play if your defense is playing bad, which they were most of this game. So I think that they should have gone for that play. You kick the ball if your defense is playing well, and to that point, they weren't playing well at times. So that's a huge call. That's a huge thing for him not to at least try to go for it. But at the end of the day, I guess hats off to the Bengals. They were able to win. Jamar Chase won him that game, and I'll give him props. I said Jamar Chase is a fantastic wide receiver. Joe Burrow is a good quarterback. This is going to be a very good offense in Cincinnati for years, but they need to get him some help blocking.
And I want to take back what I said on Twitter as well. 2.5 quarters, that was Jamar Chase making plays. Joe Burrow wasn't having a whole lot to do other than just throw it up. After that, Joe showed what kind of quarterback that he is, and that this will be a confrontation for the next 5, 6, 8 years, because he did do things that the quarterback won those plays, not just throwing it up to the extreme athlete that was on fire today. So for those of you who are yelling at me at Twitter, I want you to hear me say that. So enjoy that. I won't say it again. At the end of the day, this is a team that can regroup from this, has to focus in, and has to finish this season strong, in my opinion, Matt. I don't think you can afford to take any okay, we're in the playoffs, it's just a seeding issue, we're going to take it easy and try to save anybody. They have to get back on the horse, in my opinion, next week.
Yeah, they really do, because, the worst part of this for the Chiefs is that you lose next week to the Broncos and a Bengals win, and they're suddenly the 2 seed. There's some scenarios where the Chiefs could really start tumbling down this. I mean, they could still end up at the 4. My math is correct on,
Buffalo could jump them too.
Yeah, if Buffalo wins out, if the Chiefs, lose again next week, I mean, there's a lot of ugly scenarios that open up. And the number 1 seed, I mean, with the Titans playing the Texans next week, you probably have kissed that goodbye. So, you're probably at this point going to be playing in the opening round. I mean, you're going to be hosting a game at Arrowhead. Yeah, you've won the AFC West. You've got that. But it opens up a whole other case of, opponents that you could be facing that could give you some nightmares. I mean, that's who are going to be the wild cards in the AFC is still a little bit of a open race. So we'll see how it sorts out and everything. But yeah, I mean, this team can't let that get them deflated. Thinking about everything that they lost today, because it was more than just one game. I mean, they lost a lot in this game. So you can't let that affect you next week, because you lose again next week to the Broncos. I don't see how this team pulls out of it. I mean, that's just too much of a tailspin, I think. So yeah, next week you got to right the ship. It's doable. I mean, there's absolutely no reason why. I mean, the way that this team has been playing over the last 9 weeks, I mean, there's absolutely no reason why they can't right the ship and keep going. But it's at this point, and a friend of mine, Nick Jacobs, made this analogy that the Bengals are a lot like the Chargers, and those are the only two teams that have really given the Chiefs any problems whatsoever the way that they've been playing the last couple of months. Chances are they could face both those teams again. I mean, and otherwise, honestly, if the Chiefs don't face the Chargers or the Bengals, I got them a prohibitive favorite against almost everybody else in the AFC right now.
And I can understand that, although I will throw out the big question mark I am going to have in that is if they end up having to go to Tennessee, who could have Derrick Henry back and should probably have a healthy Julio Jones and A.J. Brown at that point, that's a different ballgame as well.
Hey, Chiefs have done that before. They have faced the Titans again, and it worked in their favor. So I won't put anything past them. But the Chiefs definitely have trouble with these type of teams that got multiple offensive threats, who got quarterbacks that are just as gutsy as Mahomes, who've got, as my good friend Therese Paylor would say, that over my dead body gene. And you know what? Joe Burrow is one of those guys too.
Yep.
Yeah. Cream rises, and we will channel Therese, I'm sure, more than once in this coming postseason run, because as much as this hurts folks, nothing is lost. Just makes the road a little bit tougher. We'll call that black ice after today. I don't know. We'll get to the analogy. We're going to dig into this game tomorrow. Matt will be back with us in a couple of days as we start to look forward about how they can wrap this up, what they need to get done in order to solidify that postseason run that is now right on the doorstep. Matt, thanks for the time today post game.
Absolutely, guys. Take care.
Chris, have a good day. Folks, you have a good day. Thanks for listening now, and we'll talk to you.